This is how you heal your quote unquote shadow self. We take a good look at, why am I feeling angry? Well, what am I resisting? What is it that I'm really afraid of? Why is it that I can't stand this about myself or about other people? What is it about this situation that brings out the absolute worst in me? All of the circumstances that we create in our lives, everything that we manifest, all of our strategies are really strategies to get our needs met. And then our deepest need is to feel safe and to feel like we belong in our bodies, that we belong in this life, and to be able to fully love ourselves, to embody unconditional love fully and completely. And we cannot do that unless we're doing deep inner work and really looking at those aspects of ourselves that we don't want to see, that we don't want to feel. When we are not getting our needs met, it triggers us, it activates these uncomfortable emotions, and these uncomfortable emotions become information. They become an invitation to explore what's really going on underneath. What is the unmet need? So tonight we're going to talk about shadow work. What is shadow work? So we call it the shadow because it's the unconscious part of us. It's the part of us that we deny or suppress. We just don't have access to it. Okay. And it's not inherently bad. It's just something that we can't necessarily see or feel or have a conscious awareness of. That's all the shadow is. Okay. And it's important to be able, as we do inner work, it's important to be able to illuminate these aspects of ourselves, to bring them into the light so that we can learn to love these aspects of ourselves. And it's only through loving our shadow that we start to dissolve its patterning. We start to dissolve its tenacity. We just start to dissolve the intensity of it as it plays out in our lives. What can be in your shadow is perhaps some of your deepest fears, or some of your deepest traumas, or limiting beliefs, all of the above, right? So the shadow is that part of you that you are denying and suppressing, the part of you that experiences deep fear, deep rage, uncomfortable emotions that we don't, as human beings, we don't want to experience these. And so we deny, we suppress them. Sometimes we repress events of our lives that are just so big, they're too much to process. They go right into the unconscious and they become part of the shadow. The reason why it's so important to do shadow work is because we want to know what lurks in the unconscious, because we want to understand what's in our frequency, what we're carrying around us, so that we can, have a better idea as to why we're attracting the same type of relationship, or why we keep, getting stuck in certain patterns or certain loops, or, why is it that I'm manifesting a certain situation when I'm, consciously making my best effort to do something different, right? So it's important to look at our shadow side as an aspect of ourselves that really just requires love, compassion, empathy, and really self-care. Okay. So one of my favorite containers for uncovering our shadow is romantic relationships. And the reason, you can uncover your shadow in any way, in any situation that triggers you. For example, it could be at work, it could be in a friendship, it could be just in the relationship you have with yourself. Okay. But romantic partnerships, personal relationships can be a wonderful container to uncover our shadow, because they can really teach us about the parts of ourselves that we didn't know were there, right? The amount of anger that we're capable of, or the amount of rage that we have within us, or the parts of us that get deeply triggered in relationships don't really get triggered when we're not in partnership. Okay. So I really like to look at the context of personal relationships, especially romantic partnerships, as a way into the shadow, as a way of really being able to see our shadow self and relate to it with love and compassion. You can have a really stormy, volatile, toxic relationship and walk away from it and say, that was a terrible relationship. Was it a terrible relationship, or was it a relationship that actually gave you a deep access and a vision into the darkest aspects of yourself, the capacity that you have for rage and for fear and for uncomfortable emotions, and ultimately the opportunity to love those aspects of yourself so that you can heal ultimately. And I believe this, and this is my context for living, is that all of the circumstances that we create in our lives, everything that we manifest, all of our strategies are really strategies to get our needs met. And then our deepest need is to feel safe and to feel like we belong in our bodies, that we belong in this life, and to be able to fully love ourselves, to embody unconditional love fully and completely. And we cannot do that unless we're doing deep inner work and really looking at those aspects of ourselves that we don't want to see, that we don't want to feel. So if you're not in a romantic partnership or a relationship, I'm sure there are plenty of relationships in your life that can trigger you or do trigger you, or perhaps situations that trigger you. Like you could be sitting in traffic and be triggered by that. Or you could be at work and be triggered by a situation, in your workplace, or perhaps with your child, So these are all, as human beings, there's no shortage of circumstances to trigger us, so that we can use that opportunity to really go deeper into ourselves and examine our feelings and start to soften our own inner critic, our own self-judgment, so we can explore these feelings with compassion and non-judgment. This is how you heal your quote unquote shadow self. We take a good look at, why am I feeling angry? What am I resisting? What is it that I'm really afraid of? Why is it that I can't stand this about myself or about other people? What is it about this situation that brings out the absolute worst in me? Okay, so being able to really examine your feelings, and underneath the feelings, because feelings come and go, they rise and fall, they're always passing, no feeling is permanent, right? And whether it's joy or peace or love or anger or sadness, all emotions are temporary. The baseline of you, the essence of who you are, is peaceful, it's neutral, right? There is no high and there is no low. But what's underneath the feelings is the need. And the needs are permanent. As far as you're human, as long as you're human, as long as you're in a human incarnation, you will have needs. You will have human needs that need to be met. Okay. And so when we are not getting our needs met, it activates it triggers us. It activates these uncomfortable emotions, and these uncomfortable emotions become information. They become an invitation to explore what's really going on underneath. What is the unmet need? What is when we're exploring our shadow side, it can just be a need for self-acceptance, right? Or self-compassion or self-empathy, whatever wasn't given to you in your early childhood. Perhaps you were criticized for your feelings, for your emotions, for your reactions. Perhaps you were, silenced or shut down or even punished for your emotional experience. As an adult, you will learn to punish yourself. You will learn to relate to yourself the way your parents related to you. And this creates some shadow aspect of yourself, because now there's a part of you that you're suppressing and you're denying because it was never given space in the first place. So as an adult, now it's your responsibility to give space to those parts of you that you really want to interact with, that you don't really want to sit with. And ultimately, what is the motivation? What is the motivation of really embracing our shadow self and sitting in the intensity of our uncomfortable emotions, facing the aspects of ourselves that we don't like? Perhaps, you were in an argument with a loved one and you feel like that brought out the worst in you, or you said something that you deeply regret, or you just can't believe what came out of your mouth. These type of situations. You want to be able to examine that in the aftermath, once you've had a chance to regulate yourself and bring yourself back to a place of center. You want to be able to examine this behavior and go, what was really going on with me? What brought up all of these intense emotions, and really softening your ability to examine yourself without judgment, without criticism, with compassion and with self-empathy, so that you can finally get to the core need. What need is it that I'm trying to meet, or what need was unmet, and perhaps has been going unmet for so long that it sparked this major reaction. Okay, so the shadow comes out when we're triggered. It comes out when we're resisting something. It comes out when we're experiencing really uncomfortable emotions. It comes out when we are feeling stuck and feeling out of alignment in our lives. Okay, so this is a wonderful opportunity. If you're struggling with something currently, there is some aspect of you that needs to be brought into the light, that you need to be looking at and embracing with compassion and self-empathy, so that you can heal this part of you, so that you can bring it into the fold and have a more holistic experience of yourself. Okay. This is so important, especially if you're on a healing journey. The motivation is you get to be fully embodied in love. You get to have the experience of loving yourself unconditionally and experiencing that fulfillment that comes with it, which is what we all really want. That's why we seek the relationship. That's why we seek the career or the thing, the goal, or whatever it is that matters most to you, because we want that experience of deep fulfillment. We want to feel like we've really gotten our needs met and we've fulfilled our potential. We want to be at peace with ourselves. Okay. And we can accomplish this by looking at all those aspects of who we are that trigger something unpleasant or something uncomfortable, and meeting that with compassion and unconditional love and empathy. Of course, this is a learned skill. For so many of us, we have no idea what empathy even is, right? And so it's really just being able to relate to that aspect of ourselves with compassion, with softness, with unconditional love and acceptance. Okay, so this requires practice. I would start with just some journal prompts if you're doing some inner work and you're on your own, just kind of sitting down and taking some area of your life that you feel stuck in, and really examining some of those feelings that you're experiencing, perhaps some of the ones that you've had trouble admitting to yourself, and really trying to get to the root of what the deeper need is underneath that feeling. What feeling or what need are you trying to meet that if you had met, those feelings would disappear, right? Those feelings would all of a sudden alleviate, right? You would feel a deeper sense of peace, a deeper sense of safety. You would feel more calm in your nervous system. Okay. So I really recommend doing shadow work. And, one of the ways in which I love to use psychic work and intuitive work and, of course, mediumship work is that we often receive messages from spirit that illuminate and give us insight into things that we don't have access to. So if you're sitting with an intuitive guide or a psychic medium and you're using your time, I want to say productively, it's beyond just predictions and what might happen, or, it's what do I need to know about myself? What is it that I can't access or can't really feel or see right now that would allow me to have deeper insight, that would allow me to work with something to get to the root of whatever my unmet need is? Because so many of us are stuck. We don't know what the unmet need is. We just know that we don't feel well, right? And so this requires pulling back some layers. And so I love to use psychic work in that sense where, we can really kind of peek into your unconscious and see what you're holding in your frequency, what you're holding in your body and in your memories that might be creating these patterns and these loops that become part of your shadow when you're not taking full responsibility for your well-being. Thank you for watching this clip from Oracle Hour. Join me live every Wednesday and Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, where you can get your questions answered too. And if you can't wait that long, or you prefer to be in a private setting, then click the link in my description and book your session with me today. I look forward to holding space for you.